928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Stumbling down the road with Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff as she carries stones, digs holes, and wheels her shovels on her way. This road is the real path. It is never easy and never clear, but always entertaining. This journey has not been a seated event, as Bridgette walks, runs, stumbles, carries, digs, drags, laughs, fights, sings, prays, dances, kicks, screams, and oftentimes falls.
Hey everybody, this is Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show on Revolution Radio. Hey, we are 100% listener supported. Our whole network helps to bring information and guests and people that we think are interesting to you. So we all volunteer and we all do this to help all of you out there. So if you feel inclined to donate, help us keep our network on the air and also keep all of our shows rolling, please go to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, and do the donate, do the click. And also we have all kinds of different ways to donate. We have heirloom seeds. We have a vast amount of stuff, including even advertising these days. And yes, I do advertise on my own network for my holistic healthcare. And so look for me on there on the main website. Also, our new website is kind of down. It was hacked, so our old website is up. And you can still find me Studio A, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The B, flying towards the flower, carrying stones, digging holes, Saturday, which that's where we're at today. But there's no back page there for information because it's the old site. So there's somebody who had a show before, their back page is up, and I am working to get that back page up. So if you want to get in contact with me for any reason, you can contact me at consciousnessofelconomics@gmail.com. And so today I have Mr. Jordan Maxwell back on. Hello, Jordan.
Hello, Bridgette.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm here, still here.
Good. Well, that's glad to hear it. Hey, so tell everybody about your website so they know exactly where they can look you up, so that when we're talking, they can look you up, and then how to get into your archives and all that.
Yes, I have a website that is different from what I used to have. My name is Jordan Maxwell, and my website is Jordan Maxwell Show. You need to keep those 3 words in mind. Jordan Maxwell Show is my website. Why do I emphasize that? Because there are other websites out there with my name on them that I don't have anything to do with them. I don't own them. I get nothing from them. And other people are using my name to make money off of my name and my personality. So if you want to talk to me, it's Jordan Maxwell Show. And go to contact and send me an email or whatever and tell me who you are and where you are on the earth, and then I can get back to you. So thank you for letting me clarify that. It's jordanmaxwellshow.com.
Yes, and he also has archives, and it does cost a little bit of a donation, but you get a ton of stuff. You want to tell them about your archives and where you're heading with your archives?
Yes, I have a second website that I call Jordan Maxwell Research Society website. It's a research website where I'm having all of my work over the years uploaded onto this website called Jordan Maxwell Research. It is filled with pictures and documents and videos and audios and recommendations and books and quotes, all kinds of research on every kind of imaginable subject that I've been dealing with over the years. So just go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, and you will see a link to Jordan Maxwell Research Society. Click on that and make a small donation for a one-time donation for a lifetime connection to my research society. And you will find tons of material on there in all kinds of forms, from documents to audios to highly recommended materials to people and important websites that you need to know about. All kinds of important information I've been coming up with for years. I'm trying to put on that website for people to do their own research, because I have so many people ask me, where do I start, to do the research you've done? Where do I start? And I said, the best place to start is with me. Go on my website, and you will see a research website. Join it, and it gives you all the information, where to go, who's doing what the words mean, how to do the research. Everything is there that I have been doing all my life. And slowly but surely it's being put on that research website. So that's it.
All right. We got all the work part out of the way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this morning, so I've been following Jordan for a long, long time. I was like one of the first people on YouTube. One of the first people that had a YouTube channel, and there were a lot of people who would, video your lectures and put them up. And so I've been following you for a really, really long time in all of your work. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you.
All right. So Jordan has a huge amount of wealth of information, probably more so than most people out there. And most people who are spouting information probably in this era now probably got their, start either watching Jordan or somebody else who also had been watching Jordan and, moving out the information. But, the rabbit holes are numerous and they are deep. And so Jordan has a lot of the information that are, way down there in those rabbit holes. So this morning, kind of what was interesting that came out, Zero Hedge had an article, kind of was like a brick this morning that whacked me in the head. So I was kind of really excited that Jordan was going to be on. But it was massive. So people can go out there and look at it this morning on zerohedge.com. Massive loss of life. 3,500 deaths as simultaneously Ebola and measles outbreaks hits Congo. So in the U.S., they were trying to drive measles outbreaks here in the United States, and they were trying to get people vaccinated, almost forced vaccinated in a lot of cases in California. And that's where in California they were like, Disneyland and all these different places, they were having these measles outbreaks. And so it's kind of concerning to me because it almost kind of looks like they were giving people Ebola with the nice measles vaccines in Congo. The other thing, too, that I want to bring to people's attention that literally dropped me off my seat, because these evil people, the people who are in control, they tell you, but you may not pick it up. They're telling you the truth, right? But you may not pick it up. And so there's a photo on this article, and there are 4 guys. Looks like one guy has a backpack and he's spraying stuff. And then there's 3 other guys that are what I call product placement, perfect product placement. And the perfect product placement is a guy or woman who's dressed up. Looks like she's got like a yellow robe on, a long sleeve yellow robe on, and she's got a Red Cross apron on top of that with the hugest Red Cross on the front. She's got these green gloves that are going up, and then she's got this helmet looking top headgear. And she looks exactly, if that was armor, she would look like an ancient Templar. That person looks like a modern day Templar, 100%. So in the photo, what they're telling you, and this is what I'm getting from it, from, my little bit of information, is that they're telling you that the Templars now are the medical professionals and aid professionals that are mass genociding whoever they don't like, right? So they're using vaccines and biological weapons now instead of swords and battlefields. And so...
Well, it's a lot cleaner. So you can just bury the bodies. You don't have to cut them all up and see all the blood and the gore and all the violence and everything. Just bury them. They're gone. That's it.
Yeah, no, but it's just, the photo was the key for me, that they were showing this person dressed as a Templar, but it's modern. It's more has medical, the outfit is more medical versus even the helmet that they're wearing reminds me of one of those old, armor helmets,
right.
Even though it's material. Yeah. It's just one of those moments where you just kind of go, if you don't pay attention to all the hints, right, all the symbology, then you're never going to figure out what they're trying to tell you. And they're telling you.
They're not going to figure it out because they're using in-house language.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, that is big.
Yeah, because when doctors get together in a convention, they can talk about stuff that they're doing and all kinds of interesting stuff that they're into. The doctors know what the words mean and what the implication of certain ideas and concepts mean. And so they don't have to explain to each other what they're talking about. The same thing with firemen, the same thing with police, the same thing with lawyers, the same thing with any professional group. The group have a group knowledge, and they already know what the story means. They already know what the words mean. And so if you go to any of these conventions where these professional groups are meeting, you can sit around and listen to the lawyers or the firemen, the police, the judges, all the professional groups sitting around talking to each other, and they are saying things right in front of you you don't understand. And the same thing is true, I learned many, many years ago. When I was 19 years old, I'm 80 now. I learned a long time ago that children do the same thing. Your teenagers are, they are talking to each other on the phone right in front of you. They could be sitting in the same front room with you, and they're talking to their friends about selling drugs or sex or anything else, and they're using their terms that only the kids know what those terms mean. The adults have no idea in the world what the kids are really talking about right there in front of you. So it's an in-house language. You've got to be one of them to understand what they're actually saying and what they're selling and what they're doing. And so that's why people can listen to politicians all day long and never figure out what's actually going on because they're not politicians. They need to understand how the world really works. and the encoded messages that bankers and military people, the police department, sheriff's department, educational institutions, all the professional institutions around the world have their own language. And today, when you go into court, it's called legalese. Legalese means particular kinds of understanding of words that are used in a court, where if you use those words on the street, they mean one thing. But if they use those words in a court, it means something totally different that you didn't know anything about. And that's why you're advised, if you're going to court, get a lawyer who has gone to college and university and got a degree, and he knows what the words mean in court. He doesn't care what it means out on the street, but in a courtroom setting, you have better understand the words you're using can send you to jail. You can go into prison because of the words you said in front of the judge. You thought you were explaining to the judge, but he doesn't understand anything in the common English on the streets. It's a courtroom scene. And therefore, what you say in that courtroom scene depends on how long you're going to go to prison for. And so that's why you need to hire someone who knows the language and knows how and what to say and how to read the symbols and what the implications are. And I've had so many different experiences with this. I got involved, somebody else involved me in something, and I had to go to court, and I had no way of knowing what was going on. And so the court appointed a lawyer for me, where they call him a public defender. And the public defender in Los Angeles said to me in private when I was talking to him, he said, "We can see that you are innocent of this charge. I can see that on paper. But the court will try and the judge is going to try and make this a felony. I know it's not, there was no harm done at all, but the judge is going to try and make this into a felony." This is what the public defender said to me. And why is he going to make it into a felony? Because he gets a kickback from the insurance companies. At the end of the year, he gets a fancy check for each case that he can make into a felony. The insurance companies will pay him a certain amount of money, and they pay the attorney who processed it. So make money from the insurance companies that you don't even know exist in a courtroom, but there are courtroom insurance companies. And they will pay the judge and the prosecuting attorney if they can make a felony out of Mickey Mouse, out of a molehill. If they can make it into a felony and you go to prison, the insurance companies will give the judge and the prosecuting attorney a kickback, a financial kickback at the end of the year. So what the judge is doing, he wants to make anything that comes to his courtroom, make it a felony. Why? Because I'm going to get a big check at the end of the year on all of you fools who are going to prison because I sent you to prison. Not because you were guilty, it's because I'm making a lot of money off of you. So you need to understand the way the courts work and the way the world works and the way government works. Nobody seems to realize how the world actually works. And it's incredible to me.
It is.
To see.
No,
it's just incredible.
Yeah, it blows me away. Another thing, too, is that, so, it was when I started having big, problems. I'm not going to call them legal issues, but where I was, frontal attacked for my private practice by the state and the government. And it went on for a really long time just because I had gotten involved with some common law people, and I was learning, what they're talking about in their documents and their threats, and then, how to counter that a little bit. But one of the things that I learned during that period was that there are dictionaries for everything. And most Americans are not aware of this. You have your college dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
You have probably a dictionary for mining if you go into different types of college education. So you have your main college dictionary that they train you with, and then each field has its own dictionary. You've got a law dictionary, mining dictionary, medical dictionaries.
That's precisely correct. And that's
you have
what
the
I'm talking
public
about.
one, which is the Merriam Dictionary. And the thing is, like, you can look up a word in the, the average regular public dictionary, like a Merriam word, but then look up the same word in a Black Law Dictionary, and you will be so shocked at how they don't even mean the same thing.
That's right. And that's why people...
And they're playing their game on you.
That's right.
Their language on you because you're dumb. And if you step into their arena, their, port of entry, right? You step into their port of entry, you're a foreign citizen, so they're going to use their language on you. It doesn't matter if the port of entry is a hospital and the doctor is the dock attendant, registering everything that's coming in and out, registering life and death.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or the port of entry, which is the courthouse, or the port of entry, which is where you do your business licenses, or port of entry could be even on federal land, stepping onto federal land. So the port of entry is everywhere, and depending on the jurisdiction of that port of entry, that's the type of language they're going to use against you. And they have their own education, their own training, and their own language that they're going to use, and you're not going to understand it.
Right. And they will tell you a good dictionary to read and to look up is a Black's Law Dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary. Well, a lot of people...
You want one of the older ones, because the newer ones, they've removed a lot of words out of.
That's right. I was going to say that. And the other thing that's important to know about Black's Law Dictionary is it's not named... Black's is not named after a man or a group. It's named after blacks. It's a French dictionary that was developed for black slaves on the French domain. The French had their own dictionary for black slaves. It's called Black's Law Dictionary. So when you see Black's Law Dictionary, just remember it's for Negroes who were slaves under the French powers as they colonized the world. Anywhere the French went, that there were blacks, they had a special dictionary for them called Black's Law Dictionary. A lot of people don't know that. They think it sounds very impressive to be Black's Law Dictionary. No, black means Negro law.
Yeah, so I mean, it gets more and more, convoluted as we go down the whole. None of it makes any sense. And you wonder why people don't fight, rise up against the system, because it is so, the whole system and the way that it's been built up is really ridiculous.
Well, you can't fight something you don't understand.
Well, exactly. 100%. 100%. Yeah, no, and Mm-hmm.
So that's why I give the silly example that if you own two-story building, if you own the piece of property, have two-story building on it, and you were going to put a lot of weight on the second floor, like setting up printing presses or storing automobiles or whatever, if you're going to put a lot of pressure on that second floor, I say, for a simple explanation, you need to go downstairs with the building inspector, get on a ladder, and go up the ladder and remove the ceiling tiles from the first floor. And then look at the foundation of that floor to see if it's going to hold that kind of weight before you build on it. So what you're doing is you're standing under the foundation. You're standing under to get understanding. That's where the word comes from. To understand means you stand under the premise. You just stand under the word. Don't just buy the word, but figure out what it actually means to understand. And so once you understand that the words that are used in court is a particular kind of language, it's called legalese, and only attorneys and judges know what they're talking about. And so you are a sitting duck. When you walk into a courtroom, you have no idea in the world why it's called a courtroom. The reason why they call it court is because you play basketball and tennis on a court. And how do you play tennis on a court? You play the game of the court on the court with a racket. And this is what the whole idea of law is. It's a racket. This is why you play it on a court. And the whole idea is when you go into court, the whole idea is you have a team of lawyers, and your opponent in court has a team of lawyers. And the idea is in any court case is to put the ball back in the other guy's court. Your team stands up and throws the question over to the other attorneys. They stand up and throw it back to you and put the ball back in your court. Then you stand up and throw it back into their court, and back and forth it goes all day, and the judge is sitting listening to everything because he doesn't care who wins or loses. It's irrelevant to him. Somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose, but he's going to get paid no matter what. So the judge doesn't care about law. He doesn't care about what's right and what's wrong. He only cares about he's going to make a lot of money himself sitting on the bench. Why do you know that? Because the word bench is a Latin word for a bank. A bank was called a bench in the Roman Empire. And so therefore, if you don't show up for court, they will put out a bench warrant on you, meaning the bank wants you to come in. They were going to make a lot of money on you, and you didn't show up. So they will put out a bench warrant, meaning the bank wants you in court. Why? Because they were going to make some money off of you. They were going to fine you heavily, and the bank was going to make some more money, and the insurance companies were going to make money, and the insurance company needs that money because they're going to have to pay the judges at the end of the year. They have to pay all the prosecuting attorneys at the end of the year, so they need your money. And so that's the way the world works. It's a whole incredible dark system of lies, deception, manipulation, exploitation of children, exploitation of innocence. And the more you learn, the more you finally see what's actually going on the earth. And in this country today, in America today, it's so profoundly awesome and different than anything you've ever heard before. You will never be able to understand how government and banking and the law actually works. It's so far gone now. Most people will never be able to understand why the government works the way it does. But there is a reason. If you just do your homework, there's a reason for everything. You just have to learn what the language means and what the symbols mean. And if you're going to, and I've used this example too, if you're going to ship a box across country, you go out in the garage and you find a piece of rope and you tie the box up with the rope, and that should be sufficient to hold it together in shipping. And so that should be sufficient. But if you're going to find that rope and take that rope out onto the edge of a 10-story building and tie it off on the roof and hang on that rope, you have better check the integrity of that rope before you go hanging your body on it, because it may not hold you, and you're on the edge of a 10-story building. So it may be perfectly fine for mailing a box across the country, but it's not fine for saving your life. And so that's why I'm saying you need to do some research on where things come from, what they mean, and understand that we're living in a world of lies and treachery and deceit. And it's been set up purposely to do that.
So I have just kind of a comment and then a question. So I like to watch a lot of these mud flutter guys. You know, they've been finding, old documents and books, and people are in groups and they're actually going through them and, turning them into English.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of really surprising stuff going on. My personal opinion is that I believe that there are races that we don't see on a daily basis that are actually the main controllers, I believe.
No doubt in my mind about that. That's precisely what I believe.
But then I've
only been looking at this for 60 years, but that's my feeling.
Yeah, that's what I totally believe, just based on my own experience, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then a lot of these mud flood people are taking it back to the Phoenicians, and that the Phoenicians have always kind of been here because all of the symbols are the same. They're finding in these old books, like hand-drawn pictures of different things. And
Of course.
The Phoenicians, the Statue of Liberty is a Phoenician.
Yeah,
statue.
we get our words phonics from Phoenician and phony from Phoenician.
Do you think that a lot of the physical control that we're seeing it could be Phoenician based, and that they're even operating behind the scenes? Because that's where all the law of the sea came from, isn't it? Because they were all seafaring people.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And murderers. They were murderers, and they would go in and conquer places and steal, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And murder.
Yep. That's precisely right. That's why they're called Phoenicians. It gives us that word phonics from Phoenicians and phony. And that's why so much of our language is so phony, because it comes from the Phoenicians. That's incredible. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's far crazier when you really study it for 60 years. It really gets crazy.
Well, that's why I love talking to you or listening, to your lectures or your other radio shows. Because there's always something I'm going to catch, and it helps me to kind of develop my own mind, picking up just the little intricate things, because those are the real things that you have to really pay attention to about what's going on in any given moment.
Yep. And I'll tell you something else about my website, the Jordan Maxwell Show. You always have to add show onto it, because there are other websites out there that have my name that I don't own. But on my Jordan Maxwell Show, as I said before, I have a research website that you can join. But I have put on that research website, when you get it, you will see there are different departments or different folders, different subject matters that I deal with. One is videos and audios. One is lectures by important people. One is words. One section deals with words which are used in the occult world that you need to know what they actually mean. One is with religious ideas and concepts. But there's one section on my research society that's worth $1 million. It's worth all the money you could ever possibly pay. And it's called Interesting Articles. And on those interesting articles section of my research website are some of the most important articles that have ever been written about the human race and how the world actually, in fact, works. And it will, in fact, blow your mind if you have the background and the experience to know how to read such deep articles and find out what they really mean. Because there's about 3 different articles on the interesting articles section that will absolutely stagger you if you find out for the first time what these articles have been around for hundreds of years have said about human freedom and about our country and about the way the world works and how it works. It's so outrageous that you will not believe that you're actually reading. And it's all there. And I put it on my research website because I am told by my attorney friends not to put anything like that out on the web, period. Don't ever put things like that on the web, because you could get in serious trouble with these documents. You put it into a private venue. Therefore, people have to go and find it in a private venue, because governments are empowered to protect the people. But they are not empowered to protect private conversation. So if you go into a restaurant with a bunch of friends and having dinner, and you can sit there in the corner and talk about anything and call anybody any name you wish and use any curse words you wish and say anything you please about anybody or anything, and it don't matter how vulgar it is. It's a private conversation among private people having dinner together. So government has nothing to say about what you're saying in private. It's when you go on television and radio and go out to the public and use those same words and that same talk. Now you're in the public venue, and now government is empowered to come and throw you into jail for using such words. and saying such things. So you need to understand there's a public and a private you. And you need, if you're going to talk about something that's really dangerous, that's very, very legitimately off the wall important stuff, you better put it out there in private so people can go and read it for themselves. That's why I put those 3 documents that are on my research website. You have to join. You have to want to see them. And
okay, so tell people what that research website is again.
It's called Jordan Maxwell Show is my website. Go on jordanmaxwellshow.com, and then you will see a flyer that says Join Jordan Maxwell's Research Society website. You just click on that and make the donation and join my research society. And it's a research website on which I have pictures and documents and recommended materials and videos and audios and
What was that main link that you were talking about?
The main one is called Interesting Articles.
Okay, yeah. Interesting Articles.
Right. You go into Interesting Articles and read, and it will blow your mind. The stuff that I have been given by people who are high up in world government. They told me where to go and sent me the documents. I'll put it out there, and it will knock you out. What's actually written in the law is extraordinary stuff. And that's what I say about myself. I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. I am merely an ordinary man pursuing extraordinary knowledge. I'm fascinated with how much wisdom and knowledge is out there that nobody even knows. And so that's what I do. I find all this dark and hidden stuff and bring it out publicly so the world can make use of it. The world can find out what's really going on. But when you find out how the United States was actually founded and who owns it and how it runs and what the courts are and what the police department are and why do you have police? I mean, if you go back and watch the old cowboy movies, when cowboys ride into town, there was no police department. You didn't need to get a guns registered. You didn't have to register your gun. And cowboys could ride into town, tie up the horses, they'd go in the bar and have a few drinks, and they're wearing a gun. And if they have a falling out with somebody else at the bar, if you can't settle it like gentlemen, you're both adults, you're both men, and you're both armed, then you could go out in the street and settle it. And right in front of the sheriff's department, right in front of the sheriff, and all the people in the town, go out in the street and settle it now. Get it over with. That's the way the law worked in America. And there's a reason. There was a reason why. And so most people have never heard that reason, why you could do that, why you could draw and carry a gun on your hip and draw anytime you wish on anybody. But that doesn't mean you're smart and you'll win. That just means you pull the gun, and now they will pull a gun, and we'll see who's smart and who will see the morning come up. Because, just because you draw a gun on somebody doesn't mean that, you're going to win. They may pull the gun on you and shoot you. And so that's why in the Wild West days, you have respect for other men. You have respect for other people. If you don't, you're going to end up dead. Someone's going to draw on you. And so, you can draw on them, or they're going to draw on you. So this is where the idea of the police come in. There's a police department now, and now you have to get registered guns, and they don't want you having guns. The government of the United States is not interested in having you have a gun. They don't mind the military, that they draft you into the military, and they will give you guns and machine guns and tanks and hand grenades. They will, that's all GI equipment that's given to you and in the military. And if you're a policeman, you can carry a gun. If you're a sheriff, if you're a law enforcement, carries guns. Why? Because guns protect you. If you are law abiding, if you're a policeman, you're law abiding, you need a gun to back you up when you go out into the world to officiate over the law. You're going to need a gun because there's a lot of dangerous people out there. So the law allows the police, the sheriff, and all law enforcement to carry guns. but they don't want you having a gun. Why? Because guns were designed for you to protect yourself, and the government don't give a damn about protecting you. The only thing they want out of you is they want to make sure you are in compliance. You do what they tell you to do, and then go play your basketball game and drink your beer and stay out of the way. The cops will carry the guns, not you. And the reason why the military carries guns is to make sure that whatever the generals or whatever the big shots want in the military, that's what they get. Why? Because the military is carrying guns. And so that's why today, if you understand how the U.S. was founded and what we are today, then for the first time you'll understand why we have a police department. It's an extraordinary story of where that idea of police come from. If you're interested, we could get into that later.
Yeah, would love that. So we have about, 13 minutes or something like that before our first and only break. It'll be about 5 minutes long from 56 till 1 after, just so everybody knows. And then our promos will play. We won't hear them, but they'll be playing. So, okay, so I went back to, I wanted to have like a whole private practice that was out of the box. And I have done some internships and stuff, so I totally understand medical language.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things is that when I went back to school, because in seeds and everything in animals, we have, like a GMO section, which is super toxic. Then we have the hybrid section, which is, it's genetic change to things. And so it can cause genetic change to your body.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then we have like what was original, right? Or native or indigenous or, however we want to call that, the older species and stuff that were here. So one of the things I found out when I was doing farming stuff was that some farms, new people farming, wouldn't get heirloom stock of animals, and they would buy, the little laying hens like in little boxes or at the farm thing. But because we'll just talk about chickens, because I suspect this is going on in humans, and this is why most people can't think anymore. So true. Basically, you get your chickens, your laying hens, and you may get some in there that are brooders. In our case, we had a man turkey and we had 7 Chiquita banana female turkeys. But they all kind of came in a box. So when we got them onto the farm and we wanted them to regenerate themselves, produce offspring, they could get the eggs laid, but they were all the female turkeys were also confused about how it happened. And it turned out that I started to realize it's because they were hybrid. So they didn't know how to sit on the eggs to develop them, for a period of time. And then say sometimes 5 of them, would sit on them all and crush them all, because there was like this total genetic confusion because of the hybriding. Mm-hmm. So with people, one of the things I kind of see with people this day and age, and I've worked with some brilliant, immunologists that are out of the box and people who do a lot of this kind of work but are not in the system. They're doing their own.
I know all about it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're doing their own stuff. But one of the things is that we've talked about is, that people think that they're becoming more enlightened and conscious, but the issue is that we have like at least 5 good generations right now where they're altering our genetics and dumbing us down, taking things out of our genetics, like the ability to think.
That's precisely what's going on. That's exactly right.
The ability to revolt.
Purposely being genetically rewired.
Right, because you can do this. They do this with farm animals now. You can buy hybrids where the chickens are less aggressive, right? They can't live out on their own. I mean, you want an heirloom chicken that you can, if it gets lost, it will survive. It will figure it out. But a lot of these hybrid ones, unless they're in an enclosure and you take care of them, a lot of those can't
find their way out of a paper bag.
Yeah, they've been bred out.
People.
They've been genetically out. So do you have any thoughts about that? Because I see that a lot in my practice, especially children being born now. There is a huge amount I get calls to go look at babies and all kinds of stuff because I do traditional osteopathic work. And I do nutrition and herbalism and a lot of different things, and farming and growing food. But I go out and look at these children, and they're all like altered, and there's all kinds of crazy problems that are going on with them.
Oh, I know.
And so
You're
now
right.
we're really starting to kind of see the peak of the genetic altering that has been going on. I mean, it's happening right now in babies. Do you have any thoughts to talk about any of that?
Oh, heaven,
Thoughts on it?
God. Oh, God, yes. You know, if you have a son and he's getting married and he's going to marry a girl who comes from a very wealthy family, or the opposite, if you have a daughter and she's going to marry a guy who's coming from a very wealthy family, we say things like, well, he's of good stock or she's of good stock. And I'm thinking, what's happening here, Joe? Would daughter going to marry a cow? What are you talking about, good stock? It's because when you have a home, you have a backyard to keep your stockyard. It's a stockyard where you will keep your children in the backyard. And so it's a stockyard because people are developed into stocks. They are considered to be animals. And according to government, there's a governmental magazine that you can get in the U.S. and in England. It's called a Styles magazine. And the U.S. government produces it. You can buy it for a few bucks. The U.S. Styles magazine is a magazine based on the words and terms that federal governments use and international governments use and what they actually, in fact, mean. It's called a Styles magazine. And you will find in there, look up the word man or woman, and it will tell you man or woman is the most important level a human can occupy on the earth. That a man or woman has all the power in the world. But if you are male or female, the word male or female is for an animal. You have no a power to do anything if you're male or female, because male and female, according to Styles magazine, published by the governments, is an animal. Anyone who's an animal obviously doesn't have the power of an intellectually astute man or woman. It's an animal. And therefore, if you have on your identification, on your ID, that you are a male or female, that means you're an animal. You do not have the rights of a man or a woman. In any court, if you walk into any court and you represent yourself as a man, instantly the court is totally discharged. It's a total different courtroom. Everything is different. If you go in and say that you are the lawyers will tell the judge that you are claiming this, or you are, what's the word they use? The different things you can be in a courtroom. But no lawyer ever talks to a judge and says, my client is a man or woman. Never. Because man or woman is the highest a human can be on the earth. According to a Styles magazine, all men and women on the earth, according to government, are animals. They are male and female, not masculine or feminine. Masculine and feminine means something that denotes a man or a woman. And you can't get any higher than that, because the idea being, going back to the ancient Roman Empire, God created you. You came from the universe. When you were born, where did you come from? We don't know where you came from. You just happened to have been born here. So you came from somewhere into the now. So we say it's God. So God created you. You came from the universe. And therefore the government doesn't have anything to do with you. The courts don't have anything to do with you. God created you. You are a man or a woman. That means that you are the highest plateau of life on the earth lawfully in a court. And so you need to understand how the courts work and why it all works the way it does. And why does a judge sit on the bench? He sits on the bench because he sits higher than you, so you can look up to him, and he can look down on you as you're standing in front of him. And a bench is where, in the ancient world, the Romans used to do business in the Middle East with benches. And I've been to Egypt 3 times and given lectures all over Egypt on the subject. That when you go into Egypt, you go into the towns where they're shopping, into the malls and shopping, and you will see people sitting on the floor on pillows, and they have a wooden bench in front of them, and whatever it is they're selling is on the bench. And so if you're walking through and you want to buy something, you have to reach down and put the money on the wooden bench, and they give you what you bought. And so the whole idea that you're doing banking on a bench, and that's why in courts you have a bench warrant, because a bench in Latin is a bank. Look it up in a law dictionary. Look up the word bench. And then also look up, while you're doing it, look up the word Congress, because the United States has a Congress. And look up the word commerce. Commerce you think is a business. Look up the word commerce and Congress in a law dictionary, and it will tell you very specifically that commerce and Congress means sex. Sex is called Congress. There's co-ressing and then there's congressing. And so Congress means sex between male and female, or in between humans. It's called Congress. And then the word commerce is a business. Commerce, look it up in the law dictionary, is sex. Is considered to be a business. That's why if you're going to get married, you got to have a license. Why? Because it's a business license. You're going to do some business. But thank God who you're doing business with is none of my business. and who I'm sleeping with is none of your business. But it's a business that you have made a contract with someone. It's a what is it? They call it need and a fulfillment. The woman is looking for something from the man. The man is looking for something from the woman. It's just a business. And so if you're going to get married, you got to have a contract. And the contract means you have to have a license. Why? Because it's a business license. It's a really interesting world we live in. You know, if you buy a new car, let me explain this. If you buy a new car, you get something called an operator's manual. The operator's manual tells you how much oil to put in and how to change the oil and how to take care of the car. It's called an operator's manual. But if you're buying a car for your own personal use, that's one thing. That's an operator. You're an operator of a vehicle, so you are operating a car for yourself. But if you're buying those wheels, the motorcycle, the tank, the truck, a 16-wheeler, like automobile, it doesn't matter. If you're buying something with wheels to transport yourself for a business, then you are no longer an operator, so you no longer need an operator's manual. You are now referred to, if you're in business and buying the wheels for business, you are now required to be a driver. This is why you have a bus driver, a truck driver, a cab driver, a taxi driver. The word driver means you are using those wheels for business, and that's why you have to have a license, because it's a business, a driver's license. And so just need to understand that the world that you live in is hidden. All the words and terms and symbols and all the manipulation, exploitation of innocent children, of innocent humans and people who are trusting government. The government is ripping you off daily, and it all requires that you have to agree to it. And you agree to it every time you agree to do anything government tells you. They have your agreement. You have given your purposeful agreement to do it.
And a lot of it in the physical, I mean, you know, they have different layers of how they capture your agreement, right?
Of course they do.
Spiritual, energetic, but the physical one is usually going to be where you sign something.
Yep, you're right. When you sign something, it's too late. You signed it, and now now they own you. They have a signed agreement. That's why there's a difference between being English and British. English is a bloodline, but the word Brit comes from a Hebrew word berith, B-R-E-T-H. A berith is a contract. And so if you get married, you got to sign a berith. If you're going to buy a new car in England, you sign a berith. A berith is a contract, a license. And so that's why ish in Hebrew is a man or men, singular or plural. Man or men is ish in Hebrew, I-S-H.
All right. We're going to go to commercial. We'll come back at 1 after, Jordan. If you want to mute and, do whatever you need to do for a couple of minutes. We'll be right back.
Righto.
Thank you.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, all you good-looking people out there in Revolution Radio. This is Mario. I invite you to join me Thursdays at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other. It's a show about you, it's a show about me, but ultimately it's a show where we try to have a little bit of fun. We discuss important topics, and we do our best to be apolitical. So I invite you, put on your favorite pair of comfy sweats, your smoking jacket, and grab a beverage of your choice, and join me Thursday evenings at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other on Revolution Radio.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
From the astral realms to the physical plane, the halls of power to the walls of home, the multiverse to the innerverse, all will be haunted by the ghost in the machine. I am Steve Zerloff, the ghost in the machine. Mondays, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Studio B, exclusively here on Revolution.Radio.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne And cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
All right, everybody, we're back. Hour 2 of Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show here on Revolution Radio. Our old website is up, freedomslips.com. You can help us with funding to keep all of the amazing guests and information that all of our hosts bring, and also all the people who work at our network actually volunteer their time. So we do this because we love it, and we do need money to actually run our stations and network. We have advertising and heirloom seeds, and you can just, blap out a donation. And that would help us immensely. So I'm Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, and I am the host of Carrying Stones, Digging Holes, which is Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today my guest is Jordan Maxwell, and I just want to throw his websites out there right away. Jordan Maxwell Show.com is his only website. Anything else out there with Jordan Maxwell has nothing to do with him. And he has no say in it. And he also, if you go to jordanmaxwellshow.com, he's got an area where you can join the research website, and it's a small donation, and that donation is for a lifetime. He still is getting information up there, and he also pointed out in the last hour that you might want to check out the interesting articles that is under his research website. So, hey, Jordan, we're back for a second hour. So I kind of I started thinking about something during the break that you had talked about, and I'm going to stretch out a little bit and see if it all kind of goes together, and you can let me know. And you were talking about how Congress means sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it kind of dawned on me that what is kind of one of the main things that they end up doing? They dictate our biology, right? They decide if we're going to be able to have an abortion or not have abortion, what kind of medical care we're going to have, what kind of drugs, war, which, is about biological type materials, and genocide, and it deals with the human biological systems, whether we have farming and they pay farmers not to farm so we don't have food, under the $9 billion that they give to farmers every year. They're in control of the GMOs and Monsantos, and these people lobby. So it just kind of hit me.
Yeah, it's true.
That they are
all of this boils down to sex and life.
And biological. So this is what Congress is doing, is making the decisions for us biologically on all levels.
Yep.
Nothing else.
Yeah, and that's why when I hear people say, well, Congress is just screwing the American people, that's what the word Congress means. Wake up, get a law dictionary and read and understand the world you live in is a corrupt business. It's a organized crime. It's a business, and they own you because you were born into the system and you bit into it, and you didn't know anything when you were born. You were totally ignorant, and your parents didn't know, and your grandparents didn't know, and your great-grandparents didn't know, and therefore you grow up and have children, and you don't know, and they don't know, and your children don't know, and your great-grandchildren don't know. Why? Because nobody seems to know what's going on and how it works. Nobody seems to care. Like George Carlin said, the people who run this world, it's a big club and you ain't in it. And they decide what you will eat and how you will live and if you will live. You need to realize the world is not what you think it is. You need to go back and do some homework and find out how much you've never been told. And it's on that point I'd like to continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
On something else I was going to talk about. And the mere fact that why do you have a police department today when you didn't have it in the cowboy days, when the cowboys are riding into town, they ride in with the guns on their hips and they go in a bar and they have a falling out with another guy. You can settle it like gentlemen, or you can go out in the street and settle it now and get it over with. And so, but how is that possible? You can't do that today because the police department, you have to have a registration. If you even act like you're going to touch a gun, they will come after you, throw you into prison. Why? Because the government does not want you to know how the government really works. They don't want you to know how America was founded and how this country operates today. And so today, people think that they are living in the United States of America. In North America, we believe we are living in something called the United States of America. And point of fact, that is not true. You are not in the United States of America. During the Revolutionary War, we had a terrible, violent war in this country. In North America, between the North and the South. It was called a Revolutionary War. It was called a civil war between the North and the South, and it was a horrible, bloody bloodbath that went on in the United States. It was what did they call that? What did they call that war back in the 1860s? Do you recall?
No.
What did they call that war?
In the 1860s, the Civil War, right?
No. Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 80 years old, and my mind is so filled with stuff I cannot remember what I'm talking about. I've got so much. There was a civil war between the North and the South. After the Civil War was over, it was decided by the banking and the governmental. It was decided by the governmental and the banking professionals that we no longer are a United States. We were anything but united. We were not united. We just got through killing each other. Major bloodshed in a civil war. So therefore, it was decided by the powers that be in America that we are no longer will be considered to be a United States. In North America, we're no longer a United States. We're very ununited. And so, therefore, it was decided by the bankers and the people who run the government, a corrupt government, what are you going to call this land of North America where there's all kinds of people living here, all kinds of people are working here and having babies and they're living here. If we're not going to be United States of America, what are we going to be? Well, we're not united. And so it was decided that what we need to do is no longer be called the United States of America. It was decided by the best of the best. They decided that this country should be made into a corporation, and it should be made into a company, a corporation. And they incorporated it and made it into a corporation or a business instead of a republic, which can write laws. The republic was legally and lawfully in place to write laws and to govern the people, but the corporations cannot write laws. And so it was decided back in the 1860s after the Civil War 1870s, actually 1868, 1871, it was decided that we're no longer going to be called the United States of America because we're not united. But we will be, from now on, we will be referred to as the United States Corporation, Incorporated. And therefore, we are now a company. We're a corporation. And you are a corporation. And this is why today we have corporations, but corporations cannot make a law. There is no corporation on the earth that can make a law. And the reason why is because General Electric or General Motors or Ford Motor Company or any of the other big corporations cannot make a law for the country that everyone must follow. Why? Because Exxon said so. It's a law. You can't make a law for a country if you're a corporation. And so the only thing you can do as a corporation, which all corporations do, is they can have their own private and personal practices within their corporation. They can have their own, what's the word I'm looking for? Their own way of governing themselves in a corporation. That's called a public policy. It's called a corporate policy. If you buy something from Sears and you take it back to get your money back, they can't, the Sears is not going to say, no, according to the Sears law in America, you cannot get your money back. That's a law. No, there is no such law that Sears is entitled to put out there. But Sears can have their own public privacy. They can only have their private policy. They can have a policy. And so they will tell you, no, we can't do this, I can't do that, because it's a company policy. And so when the corporation was set up in 1870s, 68 to 71, the corporation can no longer make laws. There is no such as a law. There is no way for the United States to make a law. We only have what is called today a public policy. Why? Because the United States is not the republic anymore. We were changed from a republic to a corporation. In 1868 to 1871, it became a corporation, and corporations can only have a policy. Well, suppose you don't like the policy that's happening today in America. You don't like that policy. Well, the corporation has to have some kind of an in-house security to enforce that policy. And so today we don't have lawmakers in Washington. We have policymakers. And the policymakers make the policy for the corporation. And that policy is backed up by the police, coming from the same Latin word for policy. Policy for politicians with the police backing up the policy. So that's why the police department is called the lawmakers, and they are the police are referred to as peace officers. They keep the peace in the corporation to make sure everybody follows the policy. And so we call them police because they follow the policy. So that's why today the policy of the corporation is they don't want employees having guns. They don't mind the in-house security. The police, they can have guns because they need to enforce, their edicts. They need to enforce their policy. So they got guns to enforce their policy. The police can do with guns what you can't do. And that's why the military is there for, as Henry Kissinger said, the military is there to enforce the policy of the politicians. They're not there to defend America. Nobody gives a damn about America. It's over. They're there to do what we tell them to do. We're running a corporation worldwide, and we have to have in-house security. So we have military. We'll send in the Marines if we want something and they don't want to give it to us. They don't want to sell it to us. We'll send in the Marines and we'll take it and we'll kill you and take whatever it is you got. We'll take it. We don't even ask. And so that's our policy. And so that's where we get the word police from, the word policy, because we're no longer the United States of America as a as a government. It's now a privately owned corporation. It's a company, and that's why it's been operating as a privately owned corporation. Now, the question to ask: who owns the corporation called the United States Corporation? Who owns you? Whoever owns the corporation owns the land it's on, and the way it has always been, whoever owns the land owns all the life on the land. They own the oil that's in the land. They own the animals that are on the land. They own the people who live on the land. So therefore, the corporation called United States owns the land and the people on it. And you are nothing more than a public access. You are nothing more than a public, what they call these words. There's so many words I got in my mind right now. I can't remember.
So the thing is like what they did when they created the corporation, because I'm going to say it's the Phoenicians, right?
Yeah,
that
the Phoenicians
own all of the corporations right now, that control, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's why we get the word phony from Phoenicians. It's all a bunch of phony phonetics.
Right. And so how they get to own everything, and I learned this from the law end, is that a lot of them have taken them down now, but for a period of time, they were actually putting a watermark at where the water level was. So a lot of the legal buildings and all this were floating, right? They were floating on the water.
That's why you float alone at the bank.
Yeah. And so they had a watermark outside on a stone that showed people, but most people didn't recognize it, where the water line was. And usually it was above the basement to the first floor. So it's a ship, basically, like, an anchored ship, basically, whatever legal building that you went into. So how they got control over everything is that they applied water, right?
That's
legally.
Right.
Over everything. So there wasn't any landmass left. So the Phoenicians, the people who maritime law, admiralty law, who rule the waters, could control everything. And then this is something that somebody told me too. I was writing a lot of FOIAs because I was trying to get some information back, on the big private practice attack. And and one of the things that they said is well, if they're housing those files that you want in the basement, they don't exist. They're covered by water. So they're not going to give them to you.
That's
so
right.
Even if you want the FOIA, it has to be something that's above, maybe that's visual in the ship, and they'll give you that information. But if it's below, and he said that's why the Smithsonian has a bigger basement than what you see above. The Vatican has a bigger basement than what you see above, because they confiscate and hide everything under there. And
That's
you
right.
don't have any right to it because it's underwater.
Exactly. Like your house is underwater. If you haven't paid your payments on your house, the house is considered to be underwater. So why? Because you haven't paid for the house. As a matter of fact, that brings up another subject. In America, in the United States today, you cannot pay a bill. You can discharge a debt, but you cannot pay a bill. We say things like, well, I got to pay this bill or pay that bill. No, actually, and point of fact, courts will show you, you don't pay a bill in America. You can discharge a debt. Why? How does this work? It's because, let's say, for instance, if you were a painting contractor and I call you and I say, I want you to paint my office. And you say, okay, so you come over and you look at the job and give me an estimate. And your estimate for painting my room is $100. And so the way commerce works, it's a business deal. You are licensed by the state to be a painting contractor, and I am making a deal with you. And so you give me an estimate of $100, and I agree. Now, when you're through with the job, what do? You come to me and you're through with the job and I'm happy with it. You give me a bill for $100 and I'm expected to pay it. So when you give me a bill for $100 for painting my room, I reach in my wallet and I pull out a $100 bill. And I hand you the $100 bill. Now you've been paid. No, I never paid you anything. You never were paid nothing. I didn't pay for anything. You gave me a bill for $100. I gave you a $100 bill. If you had given me a bill for $20, I give you a $20 bill. What I'm giving you is a piece of paper, which is a banknote, and it's a bill that you owe me. You owe me $100, and I just gave it to you. The bill is $100 you owe me. And since I owe you $100 and you owe me $100, then we're even. All we got to do is keep a record of it for our taxes. And so I never paid you anything. This is why in America you don't own anything. If you walk into an auto agency with, say, $35,000 in cash and you want to buy a brand new car for $35,000 and you lay the cash out on the table and they take it and they give you the keys and you walk out and drive off with a new car, you can say you own that car. And point of fact, you don't own nothing. You don't even come near owning that car.
Because you paid in bills.
You paid it in a bill. So all you did is you have discharged a debt. Like when you walk across a carpet and touch a piece of steel and a little shock. That's why you call it a sticker shock. It's because you did not pay a bill. You discharged the debt with the dollar bills. The dollar bills were banknotes. So you really didn't pay for anything, therefore you don't own it.
And they're based on debt too. So it's all debt. Debt for debt, right. Debt. That's why nobody can get ahead.
Precisely. And that's why no matter how much you pay, you're just building up a debt because you owe the Federal Reserve. You owe, the bankers tell us that we have a national debt. Well, who do we owe this national debt to? Well, the people who print your money. The Federal Reserve, you owe money to them because you are using their money. It's like Monopoly, the game of Monopoly. You're using the Monopoly money to play the game. Well, you have to buy the game first. You got to go to the store and pay money to buy the game. Once you buy the game, now you can use the money in the game to play the game, but you had to buy it first. You have to pay the company who produced the game called Monopoly. And so that's what happens with you.
Well, I have a question. So, thinking about this, and so say you're using their bills, right? So you're paying for bills with bills. And legally, just you using them, creating more bills, right?
Yeah, so that means
it can be like you're engaged in their fraud. No wonder they can cause fraud on you for just about anything. Because you're using their bill instruments and did you ask permission?
Yep. And that's why today, if you buy a new car and you want to sell it, if I want to buy it from you, I have to give you what is called equitable interest. You have an equitable interest in the car. You don't own it. You don't own nothing. You didn't pay for nothing. You have an equitable interest. And so I have to give you something of my money that you gave to buy the car with your money. I have to readjust that I have to give you something for the car because you gave something for the car. But when I buy it from you, I don't own it. I have to go have it registered with the actual owners who own it. And that is the state in which you're living. And the state owns that car and is leasing it back to you for the federal government, who are the actual owners, because you never bought it. You bought it with a Federal Reserve note. And therefore, you don't own anything. And you never have owned anything. And that's why we're in the mess we're in today.
Yeah, because you purchased it with a bill.
That's right. You purchased it with a bill. Correct. And it's incredible the way our system works.
It just shocks me. I
Yeah.
mean, even though I know a lot, I mean, today has just been a really big shocking day, seeing those people dressed in medical Templar kind of clothing with this whole thing. And and then having this conversation about a bill for a bill, and also Congress and how they're ruling over all of the biological food, the land, how everything's going to be used, what they spray on us, what they put in our water, what they give us, the kind of medical. I mean, now I really kind of have
the reason why all of that is happening is because
I understand why they do now what they do, because I didn't relate it before to the medical biological process.
Well, the reason why they're doing all this stuff to kill us, with spraying us and putting poisons in your food. And when you buy cereals for children, it says it's fortified. The cereal is fortified with iron. Well, there's an article on the web that shows when you dump that whole bag of cereal into a metal bowl and then pull the cereal itself out and put a magnet there, it will collect all the actual metal filings, iron filings, which is the iron in the cereal. No, it's iron filings. They're giving you straight iron. It's not a medical or a medical iron. No, it's actual iron filings that are in the cereal for children. It's incredible what they can do with foods today.
So I spent a lot of time on a native, indigenous reservation. I was helping to work with people to get, farming back onto their land. And then the government got involved and was really angry, and, because I'm white, and kicked me off because they don't want me talking to anybody and helping.
That's right.
Any of this stuff, helping the people to make decisions about their land. But
they're trying to kill everybody off, and you coming around trying to make everybody healthy.
I know. Well, that's why they hate me so much, Jordan.
Of course. Obviously.
I know they hate me.
That's why doctors like Nikola Tesla and Royal Rife and all the other brilliant minds who have come up with wonderful cures for cancer, and you say you have got a cure for cancer and it's provable 100% every time people are cured of cancer, well, whoever is promoting that cure for cancer will go to prison. They don't want people cured from cancer.
No. And
the hell's wrong with you?
Right now it's becoming more and more apparent. I mean, before Russell Means died, he was talking about how now America, was one giant reservation, and everybody was going to be treated like the Indians, and they're going to be able to see exactly what's going on. And that's totally true of what's happening. And one of the things that they do on reservations that I have seen is that they give them food, right? They give them subsidies. Because they don't want them to grow their own food or anything else. And on these subsidies, they literally say, this food is not good enough for animals. Do not feed animals with this food. Because they have been working on killing them. I mean, on this one reservation, there was something like, 1,600 Native people left of that tribe. And they two were dying a month of type 2 diabetes because of the food, that the only food that they could get access to. And then another thing that they were doing was that they would have, I'm just going to tell the truth, they would have people from UNR, University of Nevada, Reno, go out there from the dentistry and medical program. And they would pay them, they would go to the elders' homes, and they would try to give them, because they're desperate for money and food, they would say, we'll give you $250 if you let us extract one of your teeth right here on premise. So they would do like a surgical procedure, give them no, antibiotics or anything else, a major, tooth removal. And most of them wouldn't go for it, but they did get a couple people to go for it because they needed the money. And so they're genetically studying them, and so these are the kind of things. And so we think we're protected from all that, and we're not, because obviously Congress is in
You're right.
control of the laws of how that's going to play out, right?
You're right. That's exactly right.
And they're
How it's going
using
to
the
play
bank.
out.
Did you hear about the new banking thing where they want to, in order to get a new digital bank account that's coming out, so they can get rid of the bills for Bill, that you'll be required to give them 2 drops of blood to secure, your biological identity to your money.
Oh, I think that's lovely.
Isn't that like?
And that all goes
you
back
biologically, we're going to own your blood. So if you
we're
won't give it
gonna
to
own you.
us,
That's right.
yeah, same thing as them going onto a reservation and extracting some native person's teeth.
Of course, when a baby is born in a hospital, they always rub the bottom of the baby's foot with the black ink, and then put the baby's foot onto paper. And this way, the hospitals now can say they own your soul.
Yeah. Yep.
They own you. They have copyrighted and trademarked. Your DNA has been trademarked and copyrighted. So therefore, the corporation doing the DNA testing for you will take the test do the test for you. But what they don't tell you is they take that test and they incorporate it into their banking system, and so therefore they own you now. They own your DNA. They own you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if they're you're working for them, and they're giving you bills to pay your bills, which is like doesn't even. I mean, think about it, people. It like doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's so bad. It's so.
Yeah, of course it is. But
complicated, but you're working for it, so it means that you're literally paying with your soul, because there's nothing else you're getting paid for.
That's right.
You're not getting paid for your labor. They're giving you bills.
That's right.
And debt to pay.
You.
Yeah. So you're making nothing, and you're getting nothing.
And when you look in the dictionary, a regular dictionary, look up the word race, because you always hear people talk about racism, and he's racist, and that's racist. Race is a word which denotes a group of animals. Go back and read it in the dictionary. Look up the word race, and it will tell you a race is a particular group of animals. So there's a particular race we call dogs. There's all kinds of dogs, but they're all of one race. Then we have the human race. There's all kinds of humans, but they're all part of a particular human race. So race is a particular kind of life form on the earth. We have cats. We have big cats, little cats, fierce cats, mean cats, lions and tigers are baby cats, but they're all part of a race. And so the words and terms, and if there's any Native Americans listening to this program, you need to go back and do some homework on the connection between the big hotels that the Native Americans are having built on their reservations. The big hotels, if you're Native American, do some research on where did the money come from to build the big hotels for the Native Americans on their reservations. Check and see the connection between Native American, the hotels, and the mafia, La Cosa Nostra. Find out what's the connection between the mafia and the Native American hotels. You will be surprised when you find out where the money has come from to build the big hotels. Better check on it and find out what you bought into when you build a hotel on the reservation. You just invited the mafia in. And they are now in, and they now run the motels, they run the hotels, they run the gambling, and they're sucking you dry.
Well, yeah, no, they created a port of entry for their Phoenician Empire.
That's right. And when you go from one port to the next port, you have to have a pass. So they call it a passport. You know, it's really an extraordinary story about how we got where we are. All of our laws are based on water. The ancient Roman Empire said there are only two things on the earth that required law: the land and the water. That's all there is on the earth is land and water. And that's what the government wants control over whatever is on the earth. Well, whatever's on the earth is just land or water. So therefore, there were two kinds of law in the Roman Empire: the law of the land and the law of the high seas, the law of water. The law of the land is the law of the people who live on a particular spot of land. But that's why when in Rome, do as the Romans do. The idea being, if you're a law of the land, it's the law of the people who live on a particular piece of land. They have their own laws, their own customs, their own way of doing things. And if you're going to live in their country, then you need to learn how to live like they live, do what they do, and dress the way they dress, and eat what they eat. And therefore, it's the law of the land. The land is the custom of the people who live on that particular piece of land. But there's another law that's far more important. It's the law of the sea, the law of water. And the law of the sea is banking law. Laws that govern the banks of the world is called maritime admiralty, like the admiral of a navy. Why do they call it navy? It's because the body of a church building is referred to as a nave, N-A-V-E. And the United States military navy is based on the church that founded America. It's an incredible, dark story, going back to England, going back to ancient Europe. It's a very, very impressive story once you find out. And incidentally, before the Roman Empire existed, there was a group of people, a large group of people living in Europe at the time, and they didn't need the Roman Empire. They were doing all right without the Roman Empire before Rome even existed. And they were called Druids. Druids were the most important people in Europe, in North, East, Western, Southern Europe. All of Northeast, Western, Southern Europe was ruled by a people we call the white man or the Druids. And so that's where we get the word news, from North, East, West, and South, N-E-W-S. Anything that happens in the North, East, or West, or South is news. And so the people were called Druids. Anyone who was anybody in that society before the Roman Empire were called Druids. Your judges, your lawyers, your doctors, your teachers, anybody that had responsible positions in society were called Druids. And one of the most important symbols in the Druid Empire of Europe, Northern Europe, Southern Europe, Western, one of the most important symbols of political power in the Druid establishment was a magic wand, like Merlin the magician with a magic wand. It was magical power that the Druids wielded in Europe. And so the most important symbol was a magic wand. Well, magic wands were always made out of the wood of a holly tree. It's made out of Hollywood. And that's where we get today the land of Hollywood, with the magic of Hollywood. It's the Druidic, actual, in fact, Druidic de jure magic that's being wielded over the world from Hollywood, the symbol for the magic wand.
Yeah. We have I call Nevada the home of the cabal internationally. We have all kinds of, even here in Reno, when the President O was in action, it literally was coming here monthly. And if you were at the airport, they would detain everybody for hours. You'd just be sitting in your car trying to leave. It got to where I don't go to the airport. Like, I don't step foot. I don't even drop people off at the airport. I don't ever go to the airport. I don't drop anyone off at the airport. I don't go near it. But because it was getting kind of, a little bit terrifying, I got caught there. And anyway, so we have this place, I've lived here a really long time, that's called you'll love this, the Eagle's Nest. It's a private development where the Kabali people live. They have Templar, Freemason, Egyptian. They have all kinds of, even though it's like newer and modern day big houses, they have all kinds of, a friend of mine who was a contractor who accidentally got in there to do some work. And then, they got rid of them. But he said that you would just be shocked at like all of the houses. And I even went and looked at the fencing that goes around it, and it had the circles. The fencing had circles in it, which are the sun glyph, Egypt, and then the pharaohs, and then it had a lot of these little obelisk, kind of things. And the whole fence all the way around it was designed. And he said inside was unbelievable. But that's, those that's a term that they would use. They want to be above, right? Because they're the pharaohs looking down. So they'd have an eagle's nest, and then the eagle has a lot to do with how they do things, because you've talked about that before. And then it all kind of overlooks Reno. And we have, it used to be when it was first built, it was called the MGM. It's like the largest, casino or hotel tower that we have. Then it became, I forget what the next one it became. And then the banks bought it, and they turned it into the Grand Sierra Resort. So when they posted on the side of the building, it's GSR, and that G is the Freemason. And then it has a circle all the way around it in red, which is the pharaohs are telling you that that's their pyramid, and that's where they're ruling from. And then just the way that the windows that they put on this huge building and how the sun shimmers off of them, like the top cornerstone would have been,
that's right.
Like on pyramids. Mm-hmm. And then they have diamonds. They have 33 diamonds in red that light up on the side of the building, which is, here we are back at the Freemasons, red, the Templars. And so they're telling you like they're all involved, and they have a pond of water get this, where people can hit golf balls onto islands that have palm trees.
Yeah.
And then there's the entryway to the freeway 395 North. I want to do a couple videos on this so people can see it,
Yeah.
So we have all the artwork along the freeways is all mining and gold and, Wild West. And then you have this one turnpike that is just stones, right? It's all in stones, like flat. And it has an actual pyramid in the stones. And it has a lot of the shimmery stone colors. And so it's right next to this GSR, Grand Sierra Resort, and it's off Mill Street, and it's a turnpike to go up onto 395 North, in case people are interested in looking at it. And they're telling people we're here because of the pyramid shape in the rocks. They're identifying to their people, this is us, we're here. Here's our big pyramid, the GCR. It's right next to us. It's totally crazy because you look at it all and they've designed it. I mean, the big thing is like people are, the average Joe thinks he's hitting golf balls into this big pond, and it's all floating islands with palm trees and stuff on it. So they're telling you that it's Egypt, right? They're telling you about the water. They're telling you about the floating islands, right?
That's
and how
right.
It dictates right there next to the pyramid.
That's right.
Which is this hotel.
There's a whole world. That's why the pyramid is on the back of the dollar bill.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a reason why, because the eye at the top of the pyramid on the dollar bill is the eye of the Messiah. The Jewish Messiah is referred to as the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. That's in the Old Testament in the Bible. The Jewish Messiah is referred to as the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. So today Christians say that Jesus is the cornerstone of the church. No, you're wrong, inaccurate. That's not what it says. The scripture does not say Jesus is the cornerstone of the church. You need to go back and wake up and do some homework and read it correctly. It doesn't say Jesus is the cornerstone. The scripture in the New Testament says Jesus is the chief cornerstone, not cornerstone. The difference between the cornerstone and the chief cornerstone is the difference between the brilliance of the noonday sun and a faint glow from a firefly's butt. So there's no connection between a cornerstone and the chief cornerstone. Look up the word chief cornerstone in the Bible dictionaries, and will tell you a chief cornerstone is called a pyramidion. It is a triangle with an eye on top of a pyramid. That's what the Bible calls Jesus. He is the triangle on top of a pyramid with an eye in it. So he is a chief cornerstone, in that a cornerstone ties in one corner of a building. But a chief cornerstone is at the top of the building, which brings in all four sides. All four sides of a pyramid are connected together, and one little pyramid that's sitting on top as a chief cornerstone. It's the chief stone that ties in the four sides of a pyramid. And that's the symbol in the Bible for Jesus and in the Old Testament for the Messiah. So what you're talking about when you're talking about Judaism and the Messiah, you're talking about the pyramid on the dollar bill and the eye and the eye in the pyramid. And you're talking about Jesus. He is not the cornerstone of the church. He's the chief cornerstone, which you look it up in the Greek word for chief cornerstone is translated an eye on top of a pyramid. The small triangle with an eye on top of a pyramid in Greek is called, in a Greek word, which is called a chief cornerstone. So that's why today you need to go back and look at your dollar bill and look at the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill and understand why it's on a $1 bill. Because Roosevelt, being a Marxist communist, stuff that he was involved in, and he was probably talked into it by his personal cabinet members. But Roosevelt said that he wanted the chief cornerstone on the bottom line money of America. They wanted to make sure everybody on the earth eventually will have $1 in their hand, no matter what country, no matter what time. Everybody will ultimately one day have $1 in their hand. If they have the dollar, then they will have the mark of the United States Corporation, and it will be called the chief cornerstone that represents the Messiah. All of this has to do with government and religion and banking and conspiracies and all kinds of dark stuff that people have no idea in the world about. And that's what I do. I make these ideas and these points on my website. That's why you need to go on Jordan Maxwell Show and join my research society, because all of this is on there. I've got all these research articles and pictures and documents and things I recommend. I'm recommending materials, people that I recommend, websites that I highly recommend, the people that I recommend you need to listen to. It's all on my research society. So go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, and join my research society. If you want to start reading and understanding things for yourself, then start with me. I'm the one that's done all the work 60 years ago. I can tell you things you've never heard before. I can point you in a direction of education no one's ever told you before. It's all there on my Research Society website.
And as your person that's building your site can, because we talked about this before, because you have so much more that needs to go up on your research website.
Oh, heavens, yes.
That he's working on it diligently. So you probably have quite a bit of stuff that shows up every month.
Yeah.
And the cost covers lifetime.
Yeah, it's just a one-time donation. And why? Because it cost me a lot of money to have a big website of all my research material on it so people can go on and watch things and do all kinds of things on my website, but all that costs money. And I live in one room by myself. I slept on the floor for 14 years, having no money whatsoever. I live on Social Security, only about $750 a month. And so I don't own anything. I don't have anything. I've given my life to my work. I'm broke, and that's the way I came into the world. That's the way I will leave the world, because I've spent my whole life studying the dark side of human life. And so therefore, if I'm going to have a website and help people, I have to pay for it. And I have to pay my webmaster. He's got to make something too. And it costs money to keep a website on the air. So that's the way I do it. If you want to help me to keep the website going, then join the website. That helps me. You can make a donation. It's a small one-time donation for a lifetime subscription. And you'll be surprised what's on there. It's actually shocking if you see some of the stuff that's on my website you've never heard of before, you never knew before, and no one's never told you. So if you want to get started on your own research, go to my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, and join my research society. It's going to be an incredible enlightenment when you finally see what has never been told. You've never been told before. We can talk about this again on another show.
Yep.
I'd like to get into another show on the Maritime Admiralty Law of Water.
Yeah, I'd love to have you. I'd love to have you back on and like say August 31st, and you could talk about that if you wanted to.
Sounds great to me. You email me and let me know. I'm leaving town right now. I'm going to leave town at Saturday, probably Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to Los Angeles. I'll be there for a week. So at the end of the month, if you want to email me and invite me back on the show, send me all the information. I'll get right back to you. We'll do it in August.
Yeah, and I'll just hold you to it that show will be on Admiralty Law, the law of the Phoenicians. Okay, so we're coming into the last 4 minutes. So you've been listening to Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show on Revolution Radio. I'm your host, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff. Been talking to the amazing Jordan Maxwell, one of my living heroes, for the last 2 hours, and we covered a lot of territory that some of it I've never heard you talk about actually on other people's shows. So I'm kind of excited that we got to talk about it. So what do you think? What do you think is in just 4 minutes or 3 minutes? About 4 minutes. What do you think is facing us? I
think America is facing the worst possible time of horrible tragedy coming next year. In 2020, I think we're going to see the most tragic development in American history. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be frightening to people. And I know why, and I can explain it the next time we're on the air. But I believe America is facing the end times. I think she's finally facing the last and final hurrah for America. And somewhere along the line, America, like its predecessor, the Roman Empire, and that's what America is. It's the new Roman Empire. And like the 5th century, when Rome collapsed and fell on the face of the earth, the Roman Empire collapsed, and God knows it was horrible. That is what I see for coming in America. I think that we are going to see a horrible, terrible tragedy taking place, and it's going to be out of people's hands to deal with. It's going to be something that's going to be cosmic.
Well, that I was watching a video where they were talking about underground media, on YouTube, and they were talking about how Russia, they feel like Russia's really concerned about what's going to happen with America because it's kind of overpopulated, and when this all implodes, other countries are trying to figure out how they're going to be able to contain it because it's just going to be a battle warfare between all the people trying to even get the minimal, like food.
You're right. It's been said that when America catches a cold, everybody else gets TB.
Yeah.
And so if we have a little problem in our system, the whole world has got a big problem. Why? Because we feed everybody.
Yeah.
We finance everybody. We run the world show, period. And so if we have a little problem, the whole world is going to feel the repercussions of our little problem. And for them, it's going to be a big problem because do you think
that's why there's this huge move by certain countries like China, Russia, and India to accumulate as much gold and get off the US dollar, period? Do you think that's why? Because they're trying to make sure that the impact of what's coming to America.
is not going to affect them.
Yeah.
I think that there's something to that, because the world does not work the way you think it does. Nothing works the way you think it does. Banks don't loan money. Police don't keep the peace. They're not protecting you. Nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Jordan, we're at the end of the show. I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to host you on the show so that you can bring like really great information. I love it because I get to talk to you. So I probably get more out of it than anybody else, because I could talk to you about all the things I think about and then, get your opinion on them. And that has really been beneficial and helpful for me, for you coming on. And people just love you. People that follow me love you. So it's perfect.
That.
Yeah.
I unhappily, I don't feel that love.
I know.
I don't feel that I'm doing much of anything. I'm just trying to help my fellow man to understand the world he lives in. I don't consider myself to be successful or important of any way, shape, or form. I'm just an ordinary man pursuing extraordinary knowledge. I just want to help people to understand the world they live in, and I will take with me when I leave. I'm 80 years old, and I'm not going to be here much longer, and I will take with me knowledge when I leave this world that you have no idea in the world that I know.
Yeah.
People that I have talked with in private who are world-class authorities on the earth, and I have been in their personal company and talked with them personally, and you have no idea in the world how much I'm going to take with me when I leave this world.
All right, Jordan. Well, we're going to have you back on into August. I'll update you with that information, and I'll tell you what the topic's going to be, which is Admiralty Law, in case you forget. But This is the end of the show. We'll see you next Saturday. Thank you, Jordan. Have a fantastic day out there.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Welcome to Revolution Radio, where you, the listeners, are in charge. Here at Revolution Radio, we present 48 broadcast hours of news and information each and every day. Revolution Radio never sleeps. Revolution Radio is worldwide and borderless information. Revolution Radio is also commercial-free. Revolution Radio is supported 100% by you, the listeners. And that's why we appeal to you to donate and support this station and its expenses. You can support us in many available options like archive subscriptions, our seed pack selections, or even my woodworking store. And we also even have Revolution Radio's swag at the Revolution Radio Zazzle store, in which you can get t-shirts, coffee cups, even a baby onesie. Or you can just plain donate to the cause. We cannot continue without your support, and your support is what helps pay the bills. So please, if you wish us to continue, please stop by our station support page and drop a dime on us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps. Your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank or all the banks